Hi everyone, my name is Sally Fowler. I'm the owner and trainer for Disabled Advantage. Thank you for joining me on my Patreon tier, Service Dog Questions Answered. In this question, I will be answering, I need an ESA, an emotional support animal. What qualities should I look for in a dog? I honestly wish more people asked me this question because it's easy to think that any old dog will do for an emotional support dog, and that's not the case. There are so many people who are getting dogs and calling them emotional support dogs, and the dog's a train wreck. And that's not helpful when you really need that dog for your own mental well-being. So, in this post, I'm going to answer that main question. I'm also going to offshoot a little bit and talk about behavioral problems that if your dog has and you do rely on them for emotional support, definitely fix those. Work with a trainer. And things, qualities, behavioral problems that you want to avoid if you know you need this dog for emotional support. And if there's a possibility that the dog's going to start out as emotional support, and then if your condition worsens to the point where it's a disability and there's a potential where they might become a service dog, then you definitely don't want disqualifying behaviors. So I'm going to talk about a little bit that as well. If you know you need an emotional support animal and not a service dog, you might think that it's less important what kind of dog you get and what kind of qualities that dog brings to the table. But it's still really important. And it depends on why you need the dog for emotional support. If you have depression and you're just looking for a dog that's going to motivate you to get out of bed, to do things during the day because the dog is the dog's going to help you move forward, then you might want a dog who's a little higher energy. But if you have anxiety, you're going to want a dog who's a little bit more low key. So as I'm talking through this, I'm going to talk about each quality, but I want you to keep an open mind and understand that I cannot possibly explain the perfect qualities for every single situation where someone might have an ESA. I'm going to try and cover as much as I can, but different situations and different people are going to have different needs. So just keep that in mind. Qualities that I would recommend you look for in a dog who's going to be your emotional support companion would be a dog that is either calm, laid back, or has the ability to settle. And what I mean by that is a dog who is not naturally anxious. Because a dog who is naturally anxious is going to tend to have more restless characteristics and restless related behavioral problems that you're going to have to fix. And if you need an emotional support dog for anxiety, the dog's just going to mirror your anxiety, and you're inadvertently going to bring out the anxiety in your dog. And also, it's going to be harder for you to work with your dog because you're trying to manage your own anxiety while you're working with them, and then you're going to be anxious about how they're doing. And it's a really vicious cycle, especially when you try to do it by yourself. And the ability to settle is something that's learned. So it's really hard to know that when you walk into a shelter and pick out a dog. But if you know that your dog just constantly bounces off the walls and paces and spooks at loud noises and runs around the house all the time and just is never still, they may not be a great candidate for being your emotional support dog. Because when you have an emotional support dog, whether it's for, even if it is for depression, you still want a dog that is not erratic. You want a dog that if you need to just lay on the couch, that dog is going to lay on the couch with you, but who also wants to get up and go for a walk. So there's a difference between being calm and chill and being lazy. You don't necessarily want a super, super chill, laid back dog who has no go in him whatsoever if what you're looking for is a dog who is going to encourage you to get up and go for a walk. But you don't want the most energetic dog ever, because so I live with severe chronic pain. And when I do stuff, my pain gets worse. But if I don't do stuff, my pain gets worse. It's a very tricky lifestyle to navigate. I personally don't have depression, but I do have days where it's really, really hard to convince myself to go do stuff because my pain is so high that I have to be willing mentally to take on more pain. And my first dog was part Malinois. And when he was a puppy, he was still really, really high strung. And we had to teach him how to be calm for me, which was successful. I can definitely help you do that. But I had so many instances where I felt guilty for not trying hard enough or not pushing hard enough to give him all of the exercise that I know he needed or that I thought he needed. And more often than not, I was giving him enough. But it was really, really easy for me to guilt trap myself, especially if I was recovering from a procedure or something, and I knew logically and rationally that it was not safe for me to walk my dog because I was recovering and I would pass out. But the part of me that loved my dog was like, you're a bad person for not walking your dog because they're a high energy breed, right? So if you struggle with mental traps like that where your brain lies to you, getting a really high energy dog might set you up for more mental traps like that where your brain lies to you and tells you you're a bad person when you're actually not. You're a person dealing with a medical condition. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind is you want to try and match energy with what you're trying to achieve. And if what you're trying to achieve is getting out and going, yeah, you definitely want a dog who has energy, but you also want a dog who's also willing to just lay on the couch with you if that's the kind of day that you're having, or if that's the kind of moment you're having. There are some breeds who were bred to go all day long. If you are not a person, if you're not a lifestyle, if you're not a medical condition that can go all day long, don't get a breed that wants to go all day long. It will drive you crazy. Because if it doesn't get the chance to go all day long, it'll do other stuff to your house that is really stressful. And then it's not emotional support. It's stressful. It's not helping you. It's making your day worse. So calm, ability to settle, is one of the first qualities to look for. So things like explosive energy or never wants to calm down, always ready to go. Probably avoid that. You want a dog that's friendly, okay? And it doesn't have to be a dog that's friendly with everybody because honestly, you want a dog who's in tune with you. But if your dog doesn't like people and would prefer to just sit by itself or would prefer to hang out with other dogs rather than interact with you, that's not the kind of dog you're looking for in an emotional support animal. You're looking for the dog who really likes people and really likes interacting with you. And that leads me into a dog who's in tune with you. One of the ways that you can test this when you're meeting dogs is how that dog reacts when you sit down or when you kneel on the ground. And kneeling on the ground might be really hard and might be really scary if you have a pain condition. So an alternative, if you have reasonably good balance or you don't have dizziness or headaches, which is kind of hard to find in a lot of us chronic illness warriors. But if you can, sit down, kneel, squat, bend over, and see how the dog responds to you. If they very curiously come up to you all wiggly and come to check you out, that's a much better indication than a dog who immediately drops their head, freezes, backs away, walks a big curve around you, or hides underneath something. Okay. Or a dog who has a toy or is like sniffing the outskirts of the meeting area and they see you sit down, bend over, or kneel, and they just kind of look at you and then go back to what they're doing. That's not a great indication either. That's a much more neutral indication, but it's not what you're looking for, right? You're looking for a dog who, if it sees you in distress, it's going to go, hey, what you doing? Do you need some snuggles? Right? So that's what you're looking for. You want a dog who's confident, okay? And this is hard to gauge in a shelter situation, but if you come to me and you say, hey, I need help finding a dog to be an ESA, I'm going to help guide you on how to ask the right questions to figure out if a dog is confident or not. In general, though, if you currently have a dog who runs away when a loud noise happens or sudden movement or thunderstorms, they're not a very confident dog. The reason you want a confident dog is because whatever reason you need emotional support, you need a dog who's like your best friend, who you could call in the middle of the night, hysterical panic attack, and they would talk you through it. Or if you're afraid of thunderstorms, they would do a Zoom call with you and keep you rock solid steady. Okay, so you want that in an emotional support dog. You don't want a dog who isn't going to be your rock because they're afraid of the sky falling. You need emotional stability. And if your dog is not emotionally and mentally stable, they are not helpful to you. They are making you more stressed out and more tired, even if you're not aware of it. And here's the thing, I see this all the time. There's so many people who don't realize why they're stressed out is their dog. Okay? Their dog's behavior, their dog's lack of confidence, their dog's lack of manners, their dog's lack of composure and impulse control is why they're stressed out and run down and tired and burned out. And they don't know because that's how life is with dogs, except it's not. It does not have to be that way. And so if you start out with a dog who's on more stable footing mentally, you're going to actually have a dog who decreases your stress levels and actually provides emotional support and isn't making life worse for you. You can love them all you want, but sometimes they are the source of your stress. And I say that there are plenty of times my dog stresses me out, and he's extremely well trained. But living with him is sometimes stressful because the expectation for me and him as a service dog is just, it's wicked high that he has to be amazingly good at life and manners and everything. So that's why he's stressful. But in the beginning, he was stressful because he came to us pulling and charging my rabbits. And he would, when we passed my rabbit hutch, he would rear up on his hind legs and like hop, pull me across the yard trying to say hi to them. And he wasn't going to hurt them, but he was just so excited and aroused by the fact that there were tiny things within reach, right? And so that was insanely stressful, but I worked on it, we trained him, and we fixed it, and now it's not stressful anymore. So if your dog, and that was a little bit of a tangent, but dogs being stressful, Austin is an incredibly confident dog, so that was never an issue. But if your dog isn't confident, If your dog spooks easily or startles easily, they're going to add to your stress level, and they're not going to be helping your mental health or your pain levels. Because especially if you're getting a dog for stress, anxiety, and depression caused by chronic pain, your dog having behavioral problems is probably going to make your pain levels worse. And so even if you don't necessarily connect those in your brain, it's all connected. For ESAs, it's actually okay to have health issues as long as it's something that you feel like you can manage psychologically and financially. Service dogs cannot have health issues. They need to have all of their limbs, they need to have excellent conformation or good enough conformation. They need to not have severe allergies. They need to not have to take daily medication within reason. They have to not have ever been in a car accident. Service dogs have to be in peak physical and mental condition because their job is really hard and it's really physically demanding. Even for service dogs who are not doing mobility work, getting in and out of a car and walking on various surfaces and laying on hard surfaces for 10 years, essentially, is going to be harder on their body than it would be on the average pet dog or the emotional support dog, who is also a pet. And so that's where you guys have a little bit more leeway in picking your dog. I have found so many dogs who read as being awesome, and then I read was hit by a car. And I immediately have to disqualify it for being a service dog. Because even if it recovered, there's still stress trauma on that dog's body that's a weak point. So that's bad. But for an ESA, you're not using that dog for work. It's not opening doors. It's not picking up heavy objects. It's not moving things. It's not working 8 hours a day. It's not going all sorts of different places and laying on different services and getting in and out of your car 10 times a day. The degree of wear and tear on your dog's body is going to be significantly less than that of a service dog, even a service dog that's really well kept and well managed. And so when you're looking for a dog, if you find a dog who's sweet, friendly, calm, in tune with you, and has 3 legs, they can totally be your emotional support animal. Or sweet, calm, friendly, and really allergic to peanut butter. They can still be your emotional support dog. If they have a health problem that's prohibitive to you for financial reasons, or let's say they have a neurological disorder and that's worrying about them is going to make your anxiety worse, that's not a good fit. Or you have balance issues, but you use a walker, you use a cane, you don't need a service dog, but you are looking at a dog who has neurological disorder that they fall down a lot and run into stuff, they may not be a good choice for you as an emotional support dog because they might hurt you and run into you. So there's still considerations that you want to think about in terms of their health, but it's less of a limiting factor for you guys than it is for people who need service dogs. You want to look for dogs who match your lifestyle. So I mentioned this a little bit before, but I'm going to bring it up again. If you live in a really small apartment, you might look at a dog who's 50 pounds or less, as opposed to a really big, like St. Bernard. If you don't like going for walks, but you can convince yourself to go for short walks, you need to get a dog who only needs a few short walks a day or one short walk a day, not dogs who are endurance creatures who need like a 1 mile to 2 mile walk every single day. And something to keep in mind too is that dogs need exercise every single day, not optional. But there are some breeds like toys get their exercise by following you around the house. and by playing fetch. So different breeds are going to have different exercise needs. So that's something to consider. Also, if you have the financial ability and the location ability to hire a dog walker, that's something that might be an option for you as well. I say location ability, that's 2 words, because where I live, there's not stuff like that. We have to walk our own dogs, and I get actually a lot of weird looks because people don't walk their dogs where we live. There's just farm dogs, and so for the longest time when I first started walking Robbie, people would actually stop and ask if I was lost and if I needed help because they thought that I must surely be in trouble if I was just walking my dog down the side of the road. But now people recognize the person with the big dog and they don't bother us anymore. But for a while there, it was weird to see someone walking their dog. So dog walking depends on where you live. And the final thing is that if you're looking for an emotional support dog, get a dog who's going to be low maintenance grooming wise, unless A, you can afford to hire a groomer, or B, grooming your dog soothes you. I used to find brushing horses to be very cathartic. I liked the structure of it and the order of it, and it was relaxing, and I could see the end progress. I could see the end result, and I could be proud of my work. So if you have that when you are brushing out the long coat of a golden retriever or trimming up a poodle, great, go for it. But otherwise, if you don't know how to handle those types of coats, they can be very stressful to deal with. I really don't like brushing Austin for 2 reasons. One, it's not a quick thing. He has a lot of fur and it's deceptive, but it's the worst on his neck and his tail. And so it takes a good 30 to 20 to 30 minutes to brush him out fully. And we have to use 3 different brushes to do it because of his coat style. And so it's a lot of repetitive movement for me, which is hard on my pain levels, and it increases my fatigue. And he doesn't get matted because we stay on top of it, but he does get little tangles. And so then I have to spend extra time. Whereas, so it's time consuming and it's painful. 2 reasons. With Robbie, my first service dog, he had a really short coat. So I could use a Keurig comb on him, and then I could use a hard brush on him, or I could just use a hard brush and he was fine. And that was it. And it took 5 minutes. It was awesome. It was perfect for me too, because I liked brushing him. It was cathartic. There were days where I could brush him for 30 minutes, but I didn't have to. I could just brush him for 5 or 10 minutes and he was good to go. So his coat style was much better for me. And in this case, yes, I'm talking about service dogs, but the concept still applies for emotional support dogs, because depending on why you have that emotional support dog, energy might be a precious resource for you. And so you want to try and protect it. And if you need to put your energy somewhere else, like children or washing dishes later, you may not be able to have the energy to brush your dog that intensively. So that's something to consider that I think a lot of people don't really think about as being a thing. Okay, so those are the qualities that I would recommend you look for in an ESA. Things you want to avoid in an emotional support dog. Reactive behavior. So that's barking wildly at anything that passes your house, barking wildly at other dogs or people on your walks, lunging at bicycles, lunging at cars, lunging at birds, chasing every single squirrel that even looks at your dog. You don't want an anxious dog. We already touched on that a little bit. But if your dog is just always shaking or always cowering, has their tail between their legs, if they encounter something new and their first response is to run away from it or to refuse to move forward, it's called freezing, or they just look like they're trying to melt into the floor, that is not a dog who is suited for being your emotional stability rock. You also don't want a dog who's protective of you. And this goes a little bit back to reactivity. If you have a dog who's very even keeled, very mentally stable, and you train them for protection work, that is different from a dog who actively just barks wildly at anybody who comes into your space or who growls at your partner when they try to get in bed. Okay, those are very different things. So it's fine to have a dog who's specially trained for protection, but you don't want a dog who just instinctively won't let anybody near you. That's a very different thing, and that's a dog that is more on the reactive end of the spectrum. You don't want a dog who's aggressive, and I shouldn't have to say that, but also I do. And reactivity and aggression are different things, but they can sometimes be seen in the same dog. Yeah, but you don't want an aggressive dog because whether you're aware of it or not, that dog is making you stressed out. And that dog needs help. And they're not stable enough to be your emotional stability rock that an emotional support animal needs to be. You also do want to be able to take your emotional support animal with you to pet-friendly places, pet-friendly stores, pet-friendly patios, things like that are pet-friendly. Notice I keep saying pet-friendly, okay? You want to be able to take your dog to pet-friendly places if they're your emotional support animal. And if your emotional support animal is aggressive, reactive, protective, dangerous to the general public, it's really irresponsible to take them out places. It's dangerous. It's asking for trouble. You're going to get hurt. Your dog's going to get hurt, or somebody else is going to get hurt, and then you might get sued. So you don't want that in a dog. And if you know that's already in your dog, you definitely need to be working with a behavioral trainer to try and address those problems. You don't want a dog who's nervous and fearful. Again, this goes back to anxious. Dogs that are just basket cases are not good emotional support animals. They need help. They need a trainer to show you or to help them work through their anxiety so that they don't have to exist in an anxious state all the time. It's kind of like how you might take medication for your anxiety, or you might take medication and you might go talk to a therapist. Working with a trainer is like letting your dog go to a therapist. They're going to help your dog get to a better place. Their anxiety may not be completely gone, but they're going to help your dog figure out how to deal with life in better ways. And anxious dogs who have to be on medication all the time are not in a very fair place to be your emotional stability. So it's not fair to ask them to do that. And you can really easily inadvertently encourage your dog to be anxious if you don't know what an anxious dog looks like. And then they're being anxious and they come over and attention seek from you while you're in a state of distress, and then you praise them and you accidentally reinforce their anxiety, and then you're both just anxious together. That's not stability, and I really want stability for you. So not nervous, not fearful, not anxious. Things that you can fix. If it exists in your current dog, who you consider to be your emotional support dog, or that exist in a dog you're considering to be an emotional support dog. So reactivity can technically be fixed, but it's never 100% gone. your dog has learned to be reactive about something. So, in a particularly stressful situation, it might come back. So that's why reactivity disqualifies a dog for being a service dog. Because we need our service dogs to be 100% reliable, or at least 98% reliable. If you know your dog is reactive, work with a trainer. The most irresponsible thing you can do is to go, oh, I'm pretty sure my dog's reactive, but I'm not going to work with a trainer. It's fine. I can live with it. No, please don't. It's really not fair to make your dog exist in a place and exist in a mental place where they're just freaking out about everything and overreacting to every possible situation, or even overreacting to one particular thing that they see all the time. It's not very fair. Please work with a trainer. Other things you can fix are pulling, pretty easy to fix that, and resource guarding. And if there's any reason that you tiptoe around your dog, that's something to call a trainer about. These are things like, oh, we can't pull our chairs back from the table when Roscoe is in the room because he growls at that noise. Okay, no, call a trainer. Get someone to help you with that. If you're having to tiptoe around your dog, they're not helping your emotional state. They are adding stress to your life. So those would be things to call a trainer about and get some additional help. And make sure the trainer understands that this dog helps you, and explain how this dog helps you, and explain that it's really important to you that your dog be in a good mental state and be calm and be reliable and be relaxed and be confident and comfortable in their environment. Because being an emotional support dog, they're still a pet dog, they're not a working dog, but that doesn't mean they're not doing something important and of value for you. And if they're adding extra stress to your life, they're not able to give you the full value that you're looking for. They're not able to give you the full benefit that you're looking for. And you're not really going to be able to confidently take them to pet-friendly locations, or to confidently have them in non-pet housing, or take them to your therapy appointments with you, because there might be some part of you that knows there's a problem and then is just constantly worried about your dog having a meltdown while you're at those other places. And if you're constantly worried about your dog having a meltdown, you're not in a great place. And that's how your dog's adding to your stress bucket. And I keep saying stress, and I know there are plenty of other reasons why someone would have an emotional support animal, but everything is connected. And if your dog is adding stress to your life because of their behavior, or because they just are not cut out to be an emotional support dog, then whatever medical condition your dog is supposed to be supporting you with, or you think they're supporting you with, they may be only supporting you about 25% of the time, and 75% of the time they're making stuff worse. You have depression and your dog is reactive on walks, it's going to be more discouraging to convince yourself to take them on walks. Same with anxiety, and same with pain. I mean, a lot of it comes back to whether your dog is a service dog or an emotional support dog slash pet dog. You are looking for a partner who is helping you walk through life, not constantly dragging you off the trail or making you afraid to go outside. And when you look for an emotional support dog, or when you consider your own dog and how they help you with your emotional well-being, the honest truth of it is that if you own a dog, your dog probably helps with your emotional well-being. That's true for any pet dog owner. The thing about emotional support dogs is that they only have the fancy name when it comes to non-pet housing and going with you to therapy appointments. Every other time, everywhere else in the world, they are just your dog. They're just your companion. They're just your best friend. And you would want your best friend to be in a good place, to be able to be your best friend, be able to keep helping you, and you would help them when they're having tough times, right? So when you know that you're off to a little bit more of a rough start, whether it be depression, anxiety, chronic pain, whatever it is, you want a dog who is going to help you, who's going to help you have a better emotional state. And any dog is going to be able to do that. But if you select a dog who's a basket case, they're not going to be able to provide you as much assistance, as much emotional assistance as a dog who you carefully select for being an emotional support animal and who you can just jump right in with life on the right foot. I hope this has sufficiently answered this question. In summary, you want a dog who's calm, ability to settle, friendly, sweet, in tune with you, confident, curious, might have some health issues, but not prohibitive either financially or psychologically for you, or physically for you. Low maintenance, unless it's something that you find relaxing to groom a dog, and something that matches your lifestyle and that doesn't have a lot of pre-existing behavioral problems that you're going to have to spend a lot of time and energy fixing. Because one thing I didn't say about fixing the behavioral problems is that it does take a lot of work. And so owning a dog and managing a dog and living with a dog takes a lot of work when done right. But if you're starting out with a dog who has behavior problems, you're going to have to put in so much more work, and it can be really stressful and sometimes anxiety inducing to work the dog through that. And so if you're looking for a dog who is going to be an emotional support dog, that's not a good place to start. If you don't need an emotional support dog and you want a challenge, go for it. Please ask a trainer to help you, but go for it. But if you know you need stability and you need companionship, your best bet is to look for a dog who already has starting characteristics to help fill that role instead of getting the biggest mess in the pile and trying to force it to fit into your ideal dog. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or you would like to sign up for a free consult for assistance, finding an ESA or training your ESA in obedience, socialization, and very light public work in pet-friendly locations, please send me an email or a Patreon message so we can get started helping you with your emotional support animal.